There are 7 things you must never reveal, not to your closest friend, not to the person who shares your bed, not even to the family that raised you. And before you think this is just another self-help lecture, understand something. This isn't advice. This is survival. The world you're living in right now is not the one they told you about in school. It's not fair. It's not kind. It's a game. And the ones who win it are the ones who learn the rules nobody writes down. Stoicism didn't survive thousands of years because it was soft. It survived because it was true. And one of its deepest truths is this: the less people know about you, the less power they have over you. Niccolò Machiavelli didn't write The Prince as a guidebook for tyrants. He wrote it as a mirror, a reflection of how power actually works when you strip away the politeness and look at the raw mechanics underneath. And what he saw was this: everyone sees what you appear to be. Few ever experience what you really are. That's not poetry, that's a blueprint. Because here's what most people never figure out. The world doesn't respond to who you are on the inside. It responds to what you project on the outside. And the moment you start over-explaining yourself, the moment you start bleeding in public, the moment you start announcing your next move before you've made it, you hand over the controls. You let other people sit in the driver's seat of your own life. And most of them don't even know where they're going. So we're going to talk about 7 things, 7 categories of information that feel harmless to share, but are anything but. In 7 doors that seem like they lead to connection, to honesty, to closeness, but actually lead somewhere else entirely. They lead to exposure, and exposure in the wrong environment is destruction. The first thing you must never reveal is your next move. Think about the last time you were excited about something: a plan, a goal, a new direction, a business idea, a relationship you were pursuing, a decision you'd made in private that felt like it could change everything. And think about what you did with that excitement. You shared it, because that's what we're taught to do. Share your dreams, be open, be vulnerable, let people in. But let me tell you what actually happens when you share your next move too early. You give people a target, not because everyone around you is malicious, but because human psychology is complicated. But when someone hears about your ambition, especially someone who hasn't moved on their own ambitions, something shifts inside them. It's not always conscious. They don't sit down and think, I'm going to destroy this person. It's subtler than that. It shows up as a question. Are you sure that's a good idea? It shows up as concern. I just don't want to see you fail. It shows up as logic. The market is tough right now. The timing is off. You should probably wait. And every single one of those responses, no matter how it's packaged, does the same thing. It plants a seed of doubt in fertile ground. Because when you're still in the beginning stages of something, when the idea is still forming, when the plan hasn't fully solidified, you're fragile, not weak. Fragile, like a plant that hasn't broken through the soil yet. One wrong frost and it's gone. That's what premature sharing does. It exposes your fragile beginning to forces it isn't strong enough to withstand yet. Not because your idea is bad, but because the environment isn't ready, because you aren't armored enough yet, because the result, the only thing that shuts doubt down permanently, doesn't exist yet. Machiavelli understood this at a level most people never reach. He watched rulers fall, not because their plans were wrong, but because their plans were known. The moment your enemy, your competitor, even your well-meaning friend, knows what you're about to do, they can prepare for it. They can position themselves. They can talk you out of it. They can steal it. They can quietly make moves that block yours before yours even lands. Julius Caesar didn't hold a press conference before crossing the Rubicon. He crossed it. Alexander didn't send out a warning before advancing. He advanced. The move and the announcement were the same thing. The action spoke. The results echoed. That is how power works, not through explanation, through execution. And think about what happens when you hype yourself up publicly and then fall short. You haven't just failed. You've failed in front of an audience. You've handed people something they will carry forever. A story, a data point, evidence. And people who secretly didn't want you to rise will use that evidence with a smile, not openly, but in the way they bring it up years later. Remember when you said you were going to do that thing? The laugh that follows isn't cruel on the surface. But underneath it is the quiet satisfaction of someone who never had to take a risk because they watched you take one and lose. Don't give them that. Ever. Move in silence. Build in private. Let the first announcement be the result itself, because people respect finished products. They don't respect unfinished ideas. They can't. They have nothing to hold on to. But a result, that's undeniable. That's something they have to face. That's the only language that closes the mouths of doubt permanently. The second thing you must never reveal is your weakness. Every human being has them. Wounds that haven't fully healed. fears that show up at 3 in the morning, insecurities that were carved into you by experiences you didn't ask for. That's not shameful. That's human. But there is a profound difference between acknowledging your weakness to yourself and broadcasting it to the world around you. When you share your weakness with the wrong person, you don't get sympathy, you get ammunition. And the tragedy is that most of the time, you don't even know it's happening. The person sits across from you. They nod, they say the right things, they hold your hand through the moment. And in the back of their mind, quietly, almost without realizing it themselves, they are filing it away, storing it. Or they're cataloguing exactly where you bleed and exactly how hard you bleed there. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, a man who commanded armies and governed an empire, wrote in his private journals about his own failures, his own fears, his own battles with anger and grief and doubt. But notice something critical. He wrote them in his private journals, not in speeches, not in public declarations, not in conversations with advisors who had their own agendas. He processed his pain internally, behind closed doors, between himself and the page, because he understood something most people never learn. Your weakness is your responsibility, not your announcement. The world will tell you that vulnerability is courage, and in the right context with the right person that is true, but that context is rare. On a far rarer than the culture wants you to believe. Most environments are not safe for vulnerability. Most people are not equipped to hold someone else's pain without eventually using it, not because they're monsters, but because they're human. And humans, under pressure, under competition, under the slow burn of jealousy or resentment, will reach for whatever weapon is closest, and if you handed them one, they will use it. Think back, you've seen this happen. That argument with someone close to you where they suddenly reached back in time and pulled out something you said in a moment of weakness, something you shared when you were low, when you trusted them, when you thought the room was safe, and they used it. Maybe not to destroy you, maybe just to win the argument, but they used it. And in that moment, something changed. Because now you know they were keeping it, they were holding it. All that time, what you thought was closeness was actually inventory. Your enemies are not always strangers. They are often the people who sat closest to you, the ones who knew the most, the ones who had the clearest view of where you were soft. And when circumstances shift, when the relationship changes, when interests diverge, all of that knowledge becomes leverage. All of that intimacy becomes a weapon. So what do you do with your pain? You don't suppress it. Suppression is not strength. It is a pressure cooker that eventually explodes. What you do is you process it privately. You sit with it. You confront it. You work through it in spaces that are genuinely safe. A therapist, a journal, the silence of early morning before the world wakes up. You master it. You do not market it. Because here is what the Stoics understood, that modern culture has nearly forgotten. Strength is not the absence of pain. It is the private mastery of it. The man who smiles through difficulty is not lying. He is protecting. He is choosing what he allows the world to see. He is maintaining the one thing that cannot be taken from you unless you hand it over willingly, his composure. And composure is power, not because it fools people, but because it unsettles them. The man who cannot be read cannot be manipulated. The man who shows no cracks cannot be split open. The man who keeps his pain behind his eyes, who processes it quietly and comes out the other side without advertising the journey, that man becomes something most people have never encountered before. He becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is one of the most powerful forces in any room. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But underneath that famous line is a deeper principle. It is better to be unknown than to be an open book, because an open book can be read, it can be studied, it can be predicted. And a man who can be predicted can be controlled. Never expose the variables people can use to control you. Your fear of rejection, your need for approval, your anxiety about money, your unresolved wounds from childhood, your longing for a relationship you lost. These are the levers, and once someone knows where your levers are, they don't have to overpower you. They just have to pull. The third thing you must never reveal is how much you know. This one is counterintuitive. Because we live in a world that rewards the performance of intelligence, meetings where people compete to sound like the smartest person in the room, conversations where knowledge becomes a currency you spend to buy respect, social media feeds built entirely on demonstrating how much you understand. And it feels good, it feels like power, but it is actually the opposite. When you reveal the full depth of what you know too early, too freely, to the wrong people, you do several things simultaneously, all of them damaging. You give people a map of your mind. You show them your ceiling, and once they know your ceiling, they stop underestimating you. And being underestimated, truly underestimated, is one of the most powerful positions you can occupy. Think about every competitor, every rival, every person who ever came at you sideways. What made them most dangerous? The ones you saw coming, or the ones you didn't? The threat you prepared for, or the one that appeared from a direction you never considered because you never considered the source capable? When people underestimate you, they get sloppy. They share more than they should. They position themselves carelessly. They leave doors open that they would have closed if they knew who they were dealing with. And you walk through those doors quietly while they're still congratulating themselves on how much smarter they are than you. Sun Tzu understood this. Appear weak when you're strong. Appear ignorant when you're informed. Not as a trick, as a strategy. Because the gap between what people think they know about you and what is actually true is where your advantage lives. The wider that gap, the more room you have to operate, the more room you have to move, the more room you have to win. So stop explaining yourself. Stop correcting people who underestimate you in casual settings. Stop proving your intelligence to audiences who haven't earned that knowledge. Let them think what they think, store what you know, deploy it precisely when it matters most. And when the moment comes, and it will come, the impact will be 10 times greater because no one saw it coming. The fourth thing you must never reveal is your financial situation. It doesn't matter which direction you're coming from. Whether you have more than people think or less than people think, the moment you open that door, you invite a specific kind of attention that serves nobody but the people watching. And the people watching are never watching for your benefit. When people know you have money, something changes. The dynamic shifts in ways you can feel but sometimes can't name. Suddenly there are more favors being asked, more opportunities being pitched, more hands reaching in your direction dressed as friendship. People who barely acknowledged you before develop a warm interest in your life. And you start to wonder, is this real? Do they actually care about me? Or do they care about what I represent? That question, once it enters your mind, never fully leaves, and it poisons every interaction because you can never be completely sure of the answer. But here's what most people don't talk about. The danger runs just as deep in the other direction. When people know you're struggling financially, you don't get compassion. Not consistently, not from everyone. What you get is a shift in how they see you, a quiet recalibration of your value. Your opinion carries less weight in a room where people know you can't back it up materially. Your confidence gets second-guessed, not openly, but in the way people respond to it. And the ones who want to feel superior to you, they will find ways to remind you of your position. Subtly, strategically, with that particular cruelty that comes wrapped in concern. Machiavelli observed that men more quickly forget the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance. What he was pointing at was how deeply, how viscerally, how irrationally human beings are affected by money. It is not just a resource, it is a symbol. It carries meaning that goes far beyond the numbers. And when you expose your financial reality to the world, you hand people that symbol. You let them interpret it. You let them assign it meaning. And the meaning they assign is almost never the one you intended. Keep your financial situation to yourself, not out of shame, not out of arrogance, but out of strategy. Let people wonder. Let them guess. The uncertainty itself is a form of protection. Because a person who cannot be financially sized up cannot be financially targeted. And in a world where so much competition and so much manipulation is ultimately rooted in economic calculation, that protection is worth more than most people realize. The fifth thing you must never reveal is your personal life, not the surface level things, not the general facts of your existence, but the texture of it, the details, the rhythms, who you spend your time with, what your relationship really looks like behind closed doors, what your family dynamics are, where the tension lives, where the love is concentrated. Because these things are not just personal, they are leverage points. And the wrong person with access to the intimate details of your personal life has a map of exactly how to reach you, exactly how to hurt you, and exactly which relationships to work through to get what they want. Oh, we live in a culture of radical transparency. Social media has convinced an entire generation that sharing the details of your life is not just normal, but virtuous. That openness equals authenticity. That the more you share, the more real you are. And there is a version of that which is true in very specific contexts with very specific people. But as a general operating principle, it is one of the most dangerous ideas you can internalize because every detail you share publicly is a brick in a profile that someone else is building about you. Not necessarily consciously, but people accumulate information the way water finds cracks, slowly, persistently, without announcing itself. And before you know it, someone who has been paying attention knows more about the architecture of your life than you realize. They know your schedule. They know your relationships. They know where you're vulnerable. They know which people in your life they could approach. They know which emotions they could trigger. The Stoics called this the discipline of desire, the practice of not reaching outward for validation, for connection, for the feeling of being known. Because the need to be known is one of the deepest human needs, and it is one of the most ruthlessly exploited. People will offer you the experience of being understood in exchange for information. They will make you feel seen as a way of opening you up. And once you're open, once the details are flowing, once the intimacy feels real and reciprocal, you won't notice what you're handing over until it's already gone. Guard your personal life, not by being cold, not by being closed off, but by being intentional. Decide what you share, decide with whom, decide when, and understand that most of what happens inside your life, inside your relationships, inside your home, inside your heart, is not the world's business. It is yours. And keeping it yours is not dishonesty. It is dignity. The sixth thing you must never reveal is your spiritual or philosophical beliefs in hostile environments. Your beliefs are the foundation of who you are. They are the lens through which you interpret everything, the framework through which you make decisions, the source of your resilience when everything around you is falling apart. They are, in the deepest sense, the most personal thing about you, which is exactly why exposing them carelessly is so dangerous. When you reveal your deepest beliefs to someone who doesn't share them, who doesn't respect them, and who is looking for a foothold, you give them something extraordinarily powerful. You give them the ability to attack the ground you stand on. And an attack on your beliefs is not just an intellectual challenge. It lands differently. It cuts deeper. Because it isn't targeting what you think, it's targeting who you are. Machiavelli was ruthlessly pragmatic about this. He understood that beliefs, genuine, deeply held beliefs, are vulnerabilities in environments that are adversarial. Not because the beliefs themselves are weak, but because caring about something that deeply means it can be used against you. And people who want to destabilize you, who want to shake your confidence, who want to introduce chaos into your thinking, will go straight for the thing you care about most. This doesn't mean you hide who you are forever. It means you choose your audience. It means you understand the room before you open that part of yourself. It means you recognize that some conversations are genuine explorations and some are ambushes wearing the mask of dialogue. And you develop the discernment to tell the difference before you've already given too much away. The seventh thing you must never reveal is how far you are willing to go. This is perhaps the most powerful secret of all, because your limits, your actual limits, the line beyond which you will not cross, the point at which you will walk away, the threshold of your tolerance, these things define your negotiating position in every relationship, every conflict, every dynamic you will ever be part of. And the moment someone knows exactly how far you'll go, they know exactly how far they can push. And think about every negotiation you've ever been in, every argument, every situation where you needed something and so did someone else. What determined the outcome? Not always who was right, not always who had more resources. Often it came down to who blinked first, who revealed their limit, who showed through their words or their body language or their desperation exactly where their breaking point was. Because the person who knows your breaking point doesn't need to be stronger than you, they just need to push you to it. Machiavelli wrote that the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. What he was describing was not cruelty, he was describing adaptability, the refusal to be a single, readable, was a predictable thing, the discipline of keeping people uncertain about what version of you they're dealing with. When people don't know how far you'll go, they have to be careful. They have to respect the unknown. They have to operate with a margin of caution because they cannot calculate you. And that caution is your protection. That uncertainty is your power. That unreadability is the wall that keeps the most dangerous games from ever being played against you. So here's where we land. 7 things, your next move, your weakness, how much you know, your financial situation, your personal life, your deepest beliefs, and how far you are willing to go. 7 doors that feel like they lead to connection but actually lead to exposure. Or 7 pieces of information that seem harmless in the moment but accumulate into a complete map of how to reach you, how to hurt you, and how to control you. The Stoics didn't teach silence because they were cold. They taught it because they understood that the inner life is sacred. that not everything that is true needs to be said, that not everyone who asks deserves an answer, that the discipline of keeping your own counsel, of building in private, of moving without announcing, of hurting without bleeding publicly, of knowing without performing, of believing without broadcasting, of having limits without declaring them, that this discipline is not a wall between you and the world. It is the foundation on which a life of genuine power is built. Machiavelli didn't survive the politics of Renaissance Italy by being an open book. The Stoics didn't build empires of the mind by telling everyone what was inside them. And you will not build what you are capable of building by handing the blueprint to people who haven't earned the right to hold it. Move in silence. Build in private. Let the results speak when the work is done. Protect what is sacred. Guard what is strategic. And remember that the most powerful version of you is not the one the world has fully figured out. It is the one they are still trying to understand.